And now from our studios in downtown Winnipeg, it's time for 107 Live.
All right. Welcome to 107 Live on this Tuesday, October 9th here on Morning Light. You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My guest in the studio this morning is one of Canada's foremost violinists. She spent a number of years performing with Taffel Music. She's now on her own, and she's back with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra to perform a concert tomorrow night. Music of Glenn Buer, Handel, and also she's going to be performing that work, the Violin Concerto in G major by Haydn. Her name is Aisslinn Nosky, and I wanted to welcome her back to the studios. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. Welcome back. Oh, there we go. Fix the microphone as it bonks you in the nose. Welcome back. I know you've been here before, so
that's right. I was here last fall. It's nice to be back.
Last fall, and last fall you were also on your own as well, right?
Mm-hmm,
You'd already
that's
left
right.
Taffel Music a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
How many years were you with Taffel Music?
I got to play with Taffel Music for at least 10 as a full-time member, and I used to play with them as an occasional guest before that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great 10 years.
So what prompted your decision to sort of branch out and go on your own? Was it just time for a change? Or?
Yeah, I think it was time for an artistic change. I think I had the perfect job. I had my dream job. And I felt that I needed to decide whether I wanted to do that for the rest of my career or if I wanted to have some kind of a different challenge and move on to doing more directing of orchestras myself and doing more soloing myself. And so we had an amicable split, and I still feel very much a part of that musical family. I do miss them, but I feel that it was a real privilege to get to do that for so long.
Yeah, it's quite a change, I guess. You know, having when you tour and you perform, you've got a whole group of musicians with you that you're used to. It's like, as you say, like a family.
Yeah, definitely a musical family. And I really miss that. I've found new musical families in different places, but that deep connection with that organization, I think will always be there for me.
Mm-hmm. So when you were with Taffel Music, did you do a little bit of direction, or was this something, were you directing at all?
Yeah, I did actually. Every once in a while, people from the core of the orchestra would step up and be guest director for a project here or there. That was one of the things I loved most about that organization, was that even though we had the wonderful music director, Jean Lemon, there was still other opportunities for people to step forward and do soloing or do a little bit of directing here and there. And I think it really kept everybody quite challenged on their toes artistically, and it brought I think a real variety of approaches to music making to that group.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of different personalities, I imagine, in that group.
Yeah, strong ones. I like
strong personalities.
Yeah.
So before you joined Taffel Music, did you have a gig before that, or was this sort of your first major?
Yeah, I went to school in Toronto. I was born on the West Coast in Nanaimo, and I went to Toronto to study with Laurent Fenevesh at the Royal Conservatory of Music. And my first job right out of school was actually in the Canadian Opera Company Orchestra. Yes, and it was back when it was really a fantastic place to start. Back then, the music director was Richard Bradshaw, and it was before their fabulous concert. The Opera Hall was built. We used to play in a different venue, and working with Richard Bradshaw and the rest of that orchestra was such an amazing entry into the world of orchestra playing. I was completely inspired every night by those performances, and I have to admit, I do miss a little bit playing Puccini. That was always my favorite stuff to play in that. And that's still a wonderful organization, and I actually go to the COC to watch it whenever I can. I'm a little envious of when those big Puccini arias start up, that I'm not down there in the pit. But it was a great training, a great first try at being in an orchestra. I loved it.
And then how big of a leap was it to go from sort of that opera stuff to Baroque?
It was pretty different, but I was already really interested in playing Baroque when I did join the opera orchestra. I was there for 2 full seasons, and I learned a lot through that experience too. Just a very different style of as you know, of playing the big romantic operas to Baroque violin was quite a shift, but it was something I felt like I was passionate to do, so I went for it.
So in your opinion, I know when we talk about classical music, obviously classical is just sort of one era of classical music, but when we're often talking about classical music, I think for the people that aren't necessarily as well versed in the music, they often come back to Baroque music, Bach and Vivaldi and Handel. What do you think it is? What is the appeal in particular about Baroque music for people who listen to it, and then also for somebody who performs it? Yeah,
Baroque music specifically, why so appealing? I've thought about that, and I think it's hard to be unbiased as I perform it, but rather than just participate as a listener. But I know that what drew me to it, I think, is that it's very high, I think, in emotional drama, and I think that as well as that, there's also a really strong tradition of dance music. 18th century music, Baroque music, is almost always related to dance and therefore movement and motion. And I've always felt that, I know that was what initially attracted me to watching Baroque ensembles play when I was still a student. It felt as though they were playing dance music and dancing as well in a way through their instruments. And that's always been really appealing to me.
Mm-hmm. That's something that Tafel Music has done. I've watched a number of I've never seen them live. I've never seen them live, but I've seen a number of their videos, right? And it's a whole performance.
I think there's a lot of movement involved in Baroque, and that's maybe one thing that appeals to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what you've moved over from Tafel Music to, let's talk in 1 minute. We're going to talk about sort of what you're up to now and the concert coming up. But you've also offered to play us a little bit of music.
That's right. I'd like to play some solo Bach. I'll be playing the Preludio from the E major partita for solo violin.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we're listening to 107 Live. Aisslinn Nosky, who's in town tomorrow night. Well, she's in town now, obviously, but she's in town to perform tomorrow night with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra. A little bit of music. That's Aisslinn Nosky on the violin, performing some JS Bach for us. Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Well, thank you so much.
How long have you been awake for this morning so far?
Not long enough.
Not
but
long
I'm
enough.
very awake now. That's a wonderful way to start the day. Thank you so much.
No, I was just wondering about that, how challenging it is to sort of get your fingers moving at such an early hour of the morning.
Every day should start with Bach, I think.
Every
that
day?
would maybe make, for me, that would make everything a really nice day, I think.
Yeah, it would be a bit challenging for me. Actually, I could play them on CD.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Every every day should start with Bach on CD for me.
I would go for that as well.
So, tell us a bit about what you're up to now. I know you said you've got many musical families now.
Yeah, I travel around a lot and play, and I do work as a guest soloist with orchestras, and I also sometimes guest direct orchestras. My main gig these days is that I'm the concertmaster of the Handel and Haydn Society in Boston. It was a choral society founded in 1815, and we are
good year.
we're the longest continuously performing arts organization in North America.
Wow.
One of the oldest in the world. So I spend a lot of time with that orchestra in Boston. And then when I'm not there, I have a string quartet, the Eibler String Quartet. We play Baroque instruments, and we play string quartets of the 18th century. And then I work a little bit in London, England, with the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment and assorted groups. I have an orchestra in Holland I often visit. So I'll play wherever anybody will listen, essentially, I guess.
Living out of a suitcase.
Living out of an airport lounge,
So tell us a bit about the concert that we can expect. You're with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra tomorrow night.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, we have a mixed program of mostly Baroque and a little bit of classical music for you with the Haydn Violin Concerto I'll be performing. We have a really wonderful work by a local composer, Glenn Buer, and I've been really fascinated getting to know his style of writing. He's a wonderful composer. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be finishing with Handel's famous Water Music Suite, which I think most people will recognize a lot of the melodies from it. It's really fun, very joyous, celebratory music.
Mm-hmm. One last question for you before we break. What do you think they mean by the Eric Clapton of the violin? I've seen that around. I'm a huge fan of Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were going to whip out some blues there or something like that. Plug it in and play some blues on the violin.
I wish I had the skills. Yes, I think that the Toronto Star may have called me the Eric Clapton of the violin. Yeah. I suspect no one will ever accuse me of not moving very much when I play. I do. I have to admit that I probably have what's considered a fairly athletic approach to playing the violin, and maybe because I moved a bit in that concert, they felt that was an accurate comparison. And for my part, I try to do whatever I feel is natural and hope that it's really not distracting from the music. So I took that comment as a compliment, because of course Eric Clapton is a great musician. So that I was very humbled to hear that.
Yeah, I know. I remember I was reading that and I was saying, well, that's kind of cool.
I wish I could play the guitar like him, or at all.
Well, I bet he wishes he could play the violin like you.
I don't know. Maybe he's busy being brilliant.
He's busy being brilliant. Well, you are as well. Obviously, a great career you've got. It's still going strong, and congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
That you've made that transition from your, the gig with Tafel Music to doing your own thing and still having fun. So.
Oh, absolutely. That's the name of the game. We're going to be having fun tomorrow night in the concert too.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
That's Aisslinn Nosky. She's in town to perform tomorrow night with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra. Wonderful concert of Handel, Haydn, and Glenn Buer, a great local composer as well. You can go to the MCO for more information and tickets. Don't miss it. It's going to be a real fun concert.
From our studios in downtown Winnipeg, you've been listening to 107 Live, Classic 107's Intimate Concert Series, the soundtrack for your life.